Wherever you are, make it Truth Frequency Radio.
Those who behold the heavens tell of the glory of the Lord. Those who gaze at the sky recount the works of his hands. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed here on Truth Frequency Radio. And I thank all of you for taking the time to join us. It is the 18th of February, which is the 22nd of Shavat, the 11th month of the Hebrew calendar, near around the 6,000 year, or what is the 120th Jubilee of the Second World Age. And interesting enough, that, you know, this is also the third Sabbath, the quarter Sabbath moon. So happy Sabbath and welcome, and thanks everybody for joining us this evening. I have Kathy as co-host with me. Kathy, are you there, sister?
I am. Shabbat Shalom.
And welcome everybody to Richard Kallberg as well. He is our special guest this evening. Richard, are you there, brother?
Yes, thank you very much, Zen. I'm here this time.
Yeah, no problem. And you know, I'm glad that we won't have any technical difficulties and everything's good on the front end. So
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to having a full show with us. But before we proceed forward, let's give you a chance to give out your contact, website information, where people can go to read your work and support you in what you do.
Thanks. Well, first of all, I'm really humbled that you should have invited me back so soon after the last call. So apologies again for the technical difficulties on that, a month ago. So yeah, really glad to have the opportunity again to speak and present for your listeners. Thanks for everyone for listening. So my what I'll be talking about, hopefully, is my website called The Narrow Gate. The website is thenarrowgateweb.com. You can also find me on Twitter at Richard Kallberg. That's Richard Kallberg. And add me on Facebook as well, same name, facebook.com/richard.kallberg. Yeah, always, I always answer all the emails I get. So do get in touch if you have any feedback or questions, good or bad. Always fun to hear from people. So yeah, that's for me. Thanks, Anne.
No worries. Thank you. And, even in that short time, I think we were able to get like one segment in last time. And in that short space of time, we covered a great deal of information and were able to give you, at least some quality time to lay down all the premise of your work and, what brought you to in the enclosed world system, the biblical cosmology and understanding of it and why it's so very critical. So I do look forward to having time to go at a slower pace and to be able to elaborate further on all of those topics. But I thought we would begin the show with a very interesting story that just broke, I believe, last night. Kathy made me aware of it, and it's the story of Kyrie Irving, I believe.
Yeah.
And he's with the Cleveland Cavaliers now. Is that correct? He used to be with the Golden State Warriors, if I remember correctly. I'm not sure. I don't follow basketball.
He is with the Cavaliers. If they are Cleveland, I don't know. I don't follow basketball either. But
yeah,
I like him. Go Cavs.
Yeah, and what is interesting about this story is that he broke the news to his, the players that he are on his teammate that the Earth is flat, and this story has been carried forth pretty much by a lot of the mainstream news, and it has brought this topic, as far as the biblical cosmology, to the forefront of a lot of otherwise audiences which would most certainly not have paid attention to it or looked into it or considered it in any serious manner. And so we were discussing just prior to our going live about how Richard had shared about how he also, as do LeBron James and others, that he flashes a lot of Illuminati signs, and that there's images of him having done so, and so we are considering the ramifications of that. But I do consider it to be positive that at least it is being discussed, just like with B.O.B., the rapper who also went public and promoted his song Flatline about the earth being flat and about the deception of Neil Tyson and the other astrophysicists in trying to claim and affirm that the earth is a ball, a globe, and that it's spinning once daily as it annually orbits around the sun, which we know all of that to be false as well, because the earth in no manner, at no rate or velocity of speed, is spinning or moving in any way. Let me go to Kathy, and then we'll go to Richard.
Well, it was really interesting. They were talking about aliens, and how would that change your world if you learned that there were other extraterrestrial beings, and he said that wasn't as important to him. I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said, so what do you think, is the earth round? And then they asked him, well, what do you think? And he said, well, it's flat, do the research. I've done the research. And he really held his ground on it. So, and of course they are doing their usual chiding about it, and just, that's ridiculous. And especially the gal, she, it doesn't matter, that kind of response, but he really stood his ground on it. I thought he sounded like a very intelligent man. Apparently he's very charitable, a really well thought of young person. So I was very intrigued by it, followed it a bit. There was another man, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on his name, with Denver, who came out on Twitter and said, I agree with him. So it's really kicked up a bit.
Well, I think it'll definitely lead to further conversation, and that if there are any other closet flat earthers out there in the NBA community, that this would give them a chance to not be the first person to break the ice, but to come up and to support Kirby Ivory, whatever, I can't remember his name.
Kyrie Irving.
Yes, Kyrie Irving, and I know that he's a very well respected and basketball player, and so again, I think this would be a positive. Richard.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys summed it up pretty well there. To be honest, I don't follow the NBA, so I'd never heard of him before today. But I've seen that he's an all-star. Plays with LeBron James, and I think, as you said, it can only be a good thing to have, someone with that status shedding some light on this subject, and giving people, someone to back up instead of having to be the first one to say it, publicly. It'll be interesting to see how his career progresses from now on. If it just falls off a cliff, as other people who try to share the truth get vilified immediately in the mainstream media, but this doesn't seem to be the case, at least so far. I mean, I'm looking at a CBS Sports story, which has an ESPN commentator, Arash Markazi, who's asked him on Twitter and posting a video again. And Kyrie Irving is saying all the right things. I mean, he says, I think people should do their own research. Hopefully they'll either back my belief or they'll throw it in the water. But I think it's interesting for people to find out on their own. I mean, that's exactly what I would say as well. That everyone should do their own research, and
right.
He's making the right noises. But I've only seen that interview once, about 2 hours ago, and read one article, and that's about it. I didn't even know who he was. So it'll be interesting to see what sort of role he plays, if he fades, if the mainstream media ridicules him, or if he becomes a disinfo agent, like a gatekeeper of some sort. A lot of people, with gatekeepers, they'll share truth to start, and then eventually, down the line, they'll, deceive people into thinking, push someone in the wrong direction once people have started trusting them on this particular subject. So it might, just speculating now, it might be an attempt by the people in control to use one of their celebrities to kind of get a foothold in the flat Earth community and then try to steer it from there. I don't know. I'm just speculating there, so we'll see how it plays out. But it's certainly good publicity, as you were saying before the show.
Mm-hmm.
There's no such thing as bad publicity if it gets people to at least consider the subject and do their own research.
Right.
Something else that's interesting is the NBA All-Star Weekend is this weekend, and with that just coming out, I'm sure this will be a big topic of conversation. The other person was Wilson Chandler with Denver, so. Okay. Yeah, he came out. Apparently, Robbie Davidson has extended an invitation to Kyrie to come to the international conference through Twitter and however he's managed to try and reach out. So we'll see if anything comes of that. He may not be able to take the heat. I don't know. I hope he can.
Interesting.
I just had a thought. I mean, how I write a lot of posts with gematria and numbers, and I'm thinking about his initials, Kyrie Irving, KI, which is 11 and then 9/11 backwards. And
wow, what a trip.
Wilson Chandler, you just mentioned, I think, is W is 23, and Chandler's 3, so that's 233. I don't know, that's 33 in there. I'm just speculating here a little bit, but it just came to my mind.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. I noticed it a lot myself, and I don't know anything about it, but there's some things that are just too obvious. The numbers are always there.
Well, it will most certainly be an interesting thing as far as going forward. But yes, that is one thing that we always have to be careful of is that the Illuminists use their puppets to steer and lead stories, and if they want to control, they often will control something from top down, and that they will, use disinformation tactics in that way to destroy or to take away, discredit a person, a story, an individual, a topic, and that's one of the modus operandi for that, for sure. But anyways, Kathy, did you have any other stories of interest which that has come to light recently in connection to this?
No, not in connection to this, but you've just released your newest book. That's the biggest interest for me right now. You want to say something about it?
Yeah, well, actually, we released one through Sacred Word Publishing, which Kathy had edited this one. It's called The Book of the Cave of Treasures, and the books that we are releasing and the people that are studying and looking into them, we release them in 14-point font. And so they're much easier as far as the study of Scripture, because a lot of times to compress them together and with other different books and other the Book of Enoch or Book of Jasher, they will make them very small print, and for myself it's difficult and strains your eye to try to read them. And so we are releasing all the sacred scriptures and the different books that we are compiling through Sacred Word Publishing, doing it in 14-point font. And I would also say that the book cover that Gerard had created for us was fantastic, just absolutely beautiful. And so we'll put a link, Kathy has put a link to that. And that also this evening I finished, I believe, what will be the last read through that I really needed to do as far as the second book of the Great Contest, The Enmity Between the Seed Lines. And so that will be available to the public in less than a week's time, because I'm going to do one more proofread, but it is, and I think it's going to be deeply profound as far as helping people to understand the riddle of the garden parable, what Christ is speaking about as far as the enemies sneaking into the garden, sowing the tares, and then going about on his way. That when the blade was sprung up, there the tares were present with the wheat, and how all of that connects together with the war in heaven. And it's 459 pages, so it's quite deeply, because the whole reason I did this, and we'll move on from after this, but people had asked me for an audiobook version of Lucifer, Father of Cain. I decided to add all the new information that I had located and discovered over the years since the publication of that book, which was in 2010, April of 2010. And I have since discovered so much new information that in adding all of that information to that manuscript, it took the page count to well over 1,000 pages. And so I knew I was going to have to split it up into a trilogy. And the natural difference as far as the different themes that are spoken about and expounded upon in this book, it was naturally, for me, it was natural to separate them along the themes of the war in heaven, the enmity between the seed line, and what would be the war against the giants in Canaan land, to what is now modern day, the masses against the New World Order. And so that's what I've been working on, and I'm done with the second one. And I should, after this, I'm going to move and finish the Paradise, the Sides of the North, and the Mount of the Congregation, which is all of that information that I had to split off from the book, The Firmament, the Vaulted Dome of the Earth. And so I know a lot of people are really excited for that and have been looking forward to the release of that information. And so I will now move on to that. And also, we're going to help Richard to publish all of his information into book form and make that available to the listening audience and to those that are wanting to study his work and that prefer to read from a book, as I do myself. And so I'm looking forward to getting into that venture as well. And so there's a lot going on, and it's just it's a beautiful thing to provide all this information to the public. And so all of those of you that have been looking forward to the update of as far as the Lucifer, Father of Cain material, less than a week and it will be available.
I think that's really exciting. I've been working a lot on editing books now, and it's a great opportunity to read some of these materials, and I'm so thrilled to see that we're going to be able to offer them to people. The other one I've been working on is Worship of the Serpent, and it's amazing to me that this book, written in 1833, I mean, it reads like one of your books then, and it's confirming of the information that you've had, and then there's so much more historically that you don't delve into, so it's just seamless to me to read that information, so I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, and with all the different works we're going to be able to bring forth, it's just going to help those that are really interested in wanting to learn more about the gospel and its secrets, to steer them into an area of research where they, it will bless their discernment in studying the scripture with new light and with new revelation. But all right, well, let's move forward. Richard, I want to give you a chance let's go into again how it is that you were led to discernment and what encouraged you to research the topic of the biblical cosmology, and then we'll elaborate in more detail upon your blog, various portions of it, and different areas of interest connected to this as topic, as well as the firmament.
Awesome. First, let me just say it's really awesome to hear you talk about your projects. I mean, I know you've been working really, really hard on your book, and I'm humbled that you should offer to help out with bringing my blog to book form, and that's really exciting. I mean, I haven't from the outside in, it might seem just last month I've just posted one blog post, but I've been juggling a lot of things at once as well. trying to make it into a book and writing several posts at the same time. I think I have like 8, 9, or 10 blog posts which are like 80% complete, just waiting to be finished off.
Awesome.
And also I have a project to. I've been asked by a few people if I'm going to make videos of my blog, and there is a project in the works for that. I'm working together with the awesome guys at Iron Realm Media, IRM, who are helping me make a little video for that, and then I'll start making exclusive or a video exclusive for each post, just talking through it to give some more meat, because there's so much more content that I could discuss around each post, and I think it lends itself quite well to a video series. So that's something I'm working on as well, and then hopefully get this book done. So that's really exciting, and I'm really humbled to have help from someone so experienced in making a book as yourself and Kathy. So that's really awesome, and it's also I think it's great that you're publishing in 14-point font. I'm really keen in my own blog, in my own work, to publish in a way that's very easy to read. I use a lot of images and videos and stuff just to make it entertaining, just so it's not just boring reading in small tiny fonts, because I don't know, personally I struggle to read block text. So yeah, that's cool. As for your last question, how did I get into this? I spoke quite a lot about that in the last call with you, and to sum it up, I guess, so I was working in the city at a big consultancy company in London, and eventually I kind of, the lifestyle just didn't work for me, so I guess I got a bit depressed and fell into a bad time. And then as I had some time on my hands, I started asking, doing the research that no one ever has time to do. 9/11, what's going on there? Politics, fluoride in the water, all of those conspiracies. I just had time to look at them, and it became like, I don't know, a little bit of an obsession, or a way to, something to do while I was figuring things out. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn. It's like you get kind of, I don't want to say addicted, because it's not an addiction. It's more just you want to know more, because once you get past a certain stage in questioning things, you realize that what we're told in school is just a puddle compared to the ocean of information that we can find. And it's incredibly exciting once you get past a certain stage to see just how much stuff there is. And it's quite incredible now. Every single day, I'm working away and just juggling all the subjects at once. It's quite difficult to write posts and try to stay focused, because there's just so many topics that I want to research and also find time to write about and stuff. And it's like my mind is firing in every single direction.
Right.
But it's incredibly exciting, and just got to follow where the the spirit takes you, and prioritize in that manner. And I struggle to watch long videos on YouTube, even though I'd love to, all the great channels out there on YouTube that I could follow, and I do follow. I would wish to just sit and just soak in all the information and read all of your books, and follow all these great people putting things out. But it's difficult as a content producer to find the time for that. But that's prioritize a few things. But it's incredibly exciting. I want to stress to people, it's quite it's amazing to when you have an open mind to just start questioning things, because you do see how, as Socrates says, great wisdom is knowing how little we know, that you know nothing. And once you realize that, your mind is so much more open to being receptive to new things, and you're just infinitely curious, which is a very exciting time.
I've started listening to things when I sleep. You just have to be careful who you choose to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nightmares.
I had the same problem. I fully understand what you're talking about, Richard, because like when I study and read all the extra biblical material, there's so many topics that I'm writing about and interested in, and I find so many verses that are connected to different ones. And so what I did was just really begin to categorize them in different folders, and then saving all of that material. Eventually it becomes so much that you can either convert it into a blog, or a small book, or a manuscript, or even a large book, depending on how
Yeah,
long you've been researching it and how much material you've
absolutely.
discovered. Yeah,
I
so
found when I'm writing blog posts, I mean, I think my flat Earth stuff was only supposed to be like 2 or 3 blog posts, and then it just like developed into like a dozen or more. And
right.
I started on my website. I've made it a page for decodes where I'm planning on moving over all the decodes, numerical decodes I do on Facebook to there. But yeah, is that the break?
Interesting. Yeah. All right. We'll be right back, everyone. All right. Welcome back, everybody. There is a question from the chat room that I'd like to address, and it was actually more of a comment. But Drone Free Zone had asked about. I wonder if the first giants were even bigger, um, and and he also asked about how it was that they were able to survive the flood, not being able to swim for the 40 days and 40 nights of the rain coming down. But that was, it was even longer that the world was flooded. In the book of Jubilees, it speaks about how the world was actually flooded for an entire year before the waters receded. And so most certainly they couldn't have swam for that length or that amount of time. But in this new book on the enmity between the seed lines, in chapter 17, I talk about how both the giants and the seed of Cain, how they were allowed and given continuance through the flood of Noah's day, because in the parable of the kingdom in Matthew 13, Christ talks about um, the tares and how they would be allowed to continue, and that the enmity, the war between them would continue until the second coming of Christ. And so it is affirmed within scripture that both the giants and the seed of Cain would be spared and given preservation through the flood. And so I talk about that specifically, but really quick, I'll address that question and share with you a couple of verses that I discovered myself, which, bring up how that just with the giants, that how that was possible. And it says this from the Targum version of Genesis, I believe it's chapter 15. It says, "And Og came, who had been spared from the giants that died in the deluge, and had ridden protected upon the top of the ark, and sustained with food by Noah, not being spared through high righteousness, but that the inhabitants of the world might see the power of the Lord, and say, were there not giants who in the first times rebelled against the Lord of the world and perished from the earth?" That's Genesis chapter 14 in the Targum, the Aramaic Targum, which again, for those that haven't studied, it predates the King James by 2,000 years and is the Aramaic translations of the original Hebrew Torah, and they're the versions I prefer to study from. But I also found confirmation of this in the Midrash. It says this, "And Noah only remained, except Og, king of Bashan, who sat on a beam of the ladders which projected from the ark, and swore to Noah and his sons that he would be their slave forever. Noah made a hole in the ark, and through which he handed to Og his daily food. Thus he also remained, as it said in Deuteronomy 3:11, for only Og, king of Bashan, remained, a remnant of the giants." And so, and one other thing with regard to the size of both the humanity, the early antediluvian patriarchs before the flood, because as Kathy and I, we did a show on the antediluvian age, the giants, Adam, and it says in the Gospel of Bartholomew that it was Adam was 80 cubits high and Eve 50. That's the Gospel of Bartholomew, and it also mentions that in the book of Enoch that the giants were 3,000 ells. When you break that down, um, if this was indeed the measurement, I'll read a quote. If this was indeed the measurement that Charles was referring to, then that would make the giants just short of 2 miles high. This seems inconceivable since any living thing of this size would create a major earthquake every time it took a step. In the Ethiopic version of the book of Enoch, it says that they were, I believe, 300 ells in size. There's a little bit of a difference. Instead of 3,000, it's 300, but still that would make them 450 um, feet tall, according to that particular translation. And so either way, the giants were said to be very, very large. And even Adam and Eve, they would be what we would consider monstrous or giant size, according to the stature and the size dimensions of modern humanity. But that it was after, and I also cover in great detail in this chapter how it was after the flood of Noah's day that the lifespans of the of humans were reduced to less than 1,000 years. Um, Shem, Noah's son, he lived 600 years. By the time of Abraham, Abraham lived 175 years. The giants, according to the book of Enoch, their lifespans would be reduced to less than 500 years. In the book of Enoch, chapter 10, verse 14, it says, they shall all entreat thee, but their fathers shall not obtain their wishes respecting them, for they shall hope for eternal life, and that they may live each of them for 500 years. And so God reduced the stature and the lifespans of both humanity and the giants post-flood, just to answer your question. All right, but now back to Richard, and give you a chance to continue with what you were speaking on before we went to break.
Thanks.
I thought it was a good question, though.
That's an awesome question, and I was really interested to hear the answer to that as well. And you definitely did that justice, I think.
Thanks.
We're really curious to know like how you think that the age of people decreased, because that was something I've been thinking about. I read Genesis a couple of days ago. I mean, Methuselah and Enoch and Noah were really old people.
Right.
But I'm wondering like how like scientifically do you think like people's age would decrease? Is it less oxygen in the atmosphere, or how would you explain that?
Well, they say that there was less carbon or less something within the atmosphere, but of course, whatever science is to back it up, it was the will of God to decrease the stature and the size and the age, because as it says in that he would give them 120 years reprieve after the flood of Noah's day, and also that 120 years was prophetic in that God was saying he was going to reduce the lifespans of humanity from near 1,000 years, because Noah, he lived 960 years, I believe it was. But by the time of Moses lived exactly 120 years. And so Moses was the fulfillment of that prophecy in the end of, Genesis, talking about the reduction of the years and the lifespans of humanity. And now, a generation is less than, in Psalms 90, it says a generation is 80 to 70 years. But, as far as these circumstances, there is a lot of speculation that it was the carbon content, because even the creatures post-flood, there were dragonflies that had 6-foot wingspans.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything, all the creatures were affected in the stature and the size and the dimension of everything, all the natural creatures, even plants, everything.
Yeah, trees as well.
reduced.
I mean,
Right,
no,
yeah.
no trees on flat Earth. I mean,
Yes, exactly. Right. So yeah, everything was reduced. And so there had to have been some kind of environmental impact which did carry out that judgment against all things.
Awesome. Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so definitely an interesting area to study, but let us get back to now that you said you had more time with I guess refocusing on what you were going to do with your life, and you began to look into 9/11. So let's pick up there as far as, because did you buy the official story when it first came out? And what year was this that you began this great investigation and awakening?
So I was 13 at the time. Just turned, my birthday is September 9th, so I'd literally just turned 13 when 9/11 happened. And so I was too young to know
Right.
something was wrong. But within a couple of years, when I was 14 or 15, I was watching Loose Change, and the Michael Moore films and that. So I always knew that there was something wrong there, because it's pretty obvious, to be honest. But going in school and then university and then getting a job, you never really have time to research it. And around 2013, summer 2013, or spring 2013 rather, I started looking into 9/11 again, just because it came up. I think it was Boston bombing or something. And I was telling people don't believe the official story, because to me it was obvious that something was wrong. And then I just started researching again. And asking the questions, and when you do a lot of digging, I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching great research, reading books, reading as much as I could, and eventually came across Flat Earth summer 2015, and it took me half a year or a few months, 4 or 5 months to answer all the questions I had in my mind. I mean, there's still things I'm working out, like perfectly electromagnetism and exactly how that works, but it's a deep rabbit hole, and I would say that the rabbit hole is like an upside down funnel. The further it doesn't get narrower, you don't. You get closer to the truth, but the subject matter that you can research and that exists and that are subjects gets wider and wider and wider the further down you go. So that's what I was saying before the break, how I wanted to move over all the decodes I've done with numbers and stuff of news stories and things from my Facebook page to make a more a day-to-day page on my website. And that project, I didn't want to post that all the numbers and stuff on there on the website until I'd made a post explaining numbers. So I started writing a post on numbers, and then I was like, okay, well, I've got to write a post explaining subliminal programming first. And then that ended up being, I've got a post called Kill Your TV up now, and there's a few more posts in that series that's going to lead up to the numbers and then support the decodes section of my site. And that small project just snowballed into a massive project. So that's the reason why I've jumped ahead. The Kill Your TV is post 34 in my series. I've got a very calculated plan. I mean, obviously it changes because when I start writing something, like with a numbers post, I start thinking like, okay, I've got to have some content on that, and then it just grows and grows and grows. I mean, there's no end to how much I could write.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Yeah, I have that problem too.
You do.
So I haven't posted many posts like on the blog the last couple of months, but I've been working like a maniac, and I have like 10-12 posts that are like 80% done. And as hopefully I can start posting them soon. But it's important for me to have them in the right order, because I want things to be clear for people when they do come to my blog. So the Kill Your
Can
TV.
you share some of the topics?
Good question.
Absolutely. So I start off, post 1 in my blog is about cymatics, and I show the connections between cymatics and DNA and Nikola Tesla, and also how I show how the ancient Egyptians built their pyramids, incorporating phi and the same maths that are inherent in cymatics and DNA into their pyramids. And then I go into ley lines and show how that same mathematical those same mathematical ratios are inherent in many ancient cultures and their structures. So they had a lot more knowledge of nature and how it works. And cymatics, cymatics, for anyone who doesn't know, is the study of how sound affects matter, which when you really get into it, you start to realize that John 1:1 is, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. And what is the word? In Greek, the word is logos, which means to form or to shape, which is basically talking about cymatics. So the way the world came about was harmonic creation. God speaks, and he speaks the world into existence, and everything in the world has a vibration. So this is something I'm going to get into more in the post that I jumped over, like around post 30. And so I cover that a lot. I try to focus a lot on science and try to mix it in with history to show how much the ancients knew, and what sort of knowledge that we're, a lot of people, we talk about occult knowledge. Occult is just hidden, but what is that hidden knowledge? You can I'm not interested in scaring people with Illuminati and all this satanic stuff. I mean, there is some cool knowledge as well. Occult just means hidden. There's good occult knowledge and there's bad occult knowledge. And it's what you make of it. So I try to focus on science and what I can prove myself. And obviously that leads into a few different subjects, and eventually gets me into magnetism, and that leads me into study of the flat Earth model, which can be derived with magnetism and maths in nature, which is post 16 in my blog, the Torus and Ancient Cosmology. And when you compare the mathematical model, the Torus model, which has phi and magnetism inherent in it, you compare that with the structure of the cosmos as every single ancient culture saw it. I mean, school books tell us that ancients were all idiots because they believed in the flat Earth. But if you actually try to study, like, why did they do that? Why did they believe that? I mean, they didn't have fancy equations. They believed it because they studied nature and nature alone. And when the mathematical model of maths and cymatics and phi magnetism matches with their model, you start to gain a lot of trust in ancient legends and so-called myths, and there's a lot more credibility in that than our history books, which are written by people who are lying to us. But so a big chunk of my blog there is about flat Earth, and I go through all the top topics that the questions: gravity, Antarctica, the spin of the Earth. And all the questions that come up. I've tried to present it in a logical manner, so it goes. If the best way to absorb it, if you're new to the subject, is to start from the beginning and then one by one, instead of starting from one, because you really need the background. I tried to lay it out in as a narrative that kind of supports the next post, and then that post supports the next one, and always referring back to things to refresh people's memory and recapping each post. And then that once we know that the biblical cosmology, because I'll link the flat Earth model with what the Bible says as well in a post coming up, and once we know that, we can start to prove with mathematics, the existence of the Creator, and that's again with phi. What I was saying earlier, in the beginning was the Word, and rodent maths, and getting into some really, really cool stuff. That I don't think anyone's really written about before. I mean, it's stuff. Kathy sent me an article by Ivan Panin, a Russian mathematician who does an awesome job. I mean, I'd already seen a little bit of that before, but he covers it in such detail and such accuracy. It's probably the best source.
I love how you jumped on that. So many people I send it to, it just goes over the head, or they don't look at it, and you jumped right on that. It's so remarkable.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta really appreciate the importance of it, because it's a Harvard mathematician. Really, I don't know if he won any prizes or something, but he was well known, and for him to prove mathematically that the Bible is a mathematical formula, and it's impossible for the people who wrote it to have written it with that structure, the same structure. I don't know all the details off the top of my head, but it just supports it, and there's numerous other proofs as well. I mean, Stan Tenen has shown how the Hebrew alphabet is derived from phi as well, which shows that the very alphabet or the language that the Old Testament is written in has the same source code as nature. So I mean, if you think the Creator created nature, you'd think that if the Bible was His word, then it would have the same source code, and indeed it does. And then you start to gain a lot of trust in what that says.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So it's incredible stuff, and
Now, who was that?
Stan Tenen.
No, I mean, who's the person? Wow, how do you spell that?
Oh, Stan, and then surname Tenen, Tenen.
Okay, Stan Tenen.
Yes, there's a really good YouTube video.
Tenen. All right, I'm gonna have to look that up.
There's a really good YouTube video by D13 Watchman called Understanding Divine Creation, which is a great place to start for that. And I mean, there's other stuff. I mean, I cover a lot of gematria, and the Bible is a mathematical code, and you can see these number series all over the Bible if you look at the how the sentence structure works. And I mean, I'm not an expert on it at all, but what I've seen supports everything else I've studied. So that really, I mean, that's going to round out my flat Earth, because once in my own journey to truth, I started just learning about a lot of topics, but I didn't know what it meant until flat Earth kind of went to another level, and then getting to the Bible kind of ties it all together. But I'm not I was never religious before. I never picked up a Bible until I think April last year. Obviously, by researching a lot of conspiracies, I'd have a lot of exposure to biblical texts and stuff inevitably. But that's one things that I wanted to create. I wanted to create a source, a blog, where I avoided biblical stuff.
Can I ask
as much?
you?
Sorry,
I wanted to.
Sure.
Well, since especially with flat Earth now and looking at biblical cosmology for real, in my Christian walk, my Christian life, I think I was more, even without recognizing it, reliant on faith. I believed I had faith that my God is the one who created. Well, God is the one who created all, and faith. But since learning all that I have and getting into so many subjects, and you touch on all of these. I mean, from cymatics, you touch on it. There is so much involved. I can't conceive how people, and these are the brains of our world, supposedly believe in this Big Bang and the cosmology, the astronomy that we've been taught, heliocentrism, all of it, and evolution. This is what they believe, and they fervently believe, and they don't see the divine truth in everything. And I can't see anything, but I can't conceive it. I can't take them seriously. I don't know how that is. Do you feel that way?
I know what you're saying. I have a lot of patience with people though, because I find people who still believe in the globe, they're not doing that because they're bad people. They've just they're victims of propaganda and
indoctrination. Yeah,
exactly, like I was. And I have a lot of time for people. As long as people aren't hurling insults or being rude, then I'll have a lot of patience with people. And even then, I'll try to share and point them in the right direction. But so after the flat Earth, in my 34th post here, I talk about TV, subliminal programming, and I go into psychological warfare and MK Ultra and a few darker subjects. But that's really to show the depth of how far indoctrination goes with the television and information we're presented with on a daily basis. And that then will lead into a few other themes like satanic symbolism and colors, red, blue, and other color schemes that are really interesting, and then the numbers, and going on from there into some even more mind-blowing stuff on the matrix itself, how the numbers manifest and things that I can't wait to post. But I mean it does. As I said earlier, I try to avoid, or I've tried until now to avoid posting about biblical stuff because I don't want to scare anyone away. But once you do have the foundation with cymatics, with magnetism, with the science of the flat Earth, it all comes together, and there is really only one answer, and it's undeniable. And so the blog, it's kind of a combination of wanting to present things in a logical order for readers, and also to present my own journey, because I didn't arrive at the Bible, from faith or anything. I was never religious at all. I mean, I went to confirmation camp, but that was more like a golf confirmation camp, more to play golf.
There you go.
Yeah, so I was never religious at all, and I was watching Family Guy, and I laughed at religious people, and I apologize to anyone who I made fun of.
But that goes back to that article you're talking about, your post. It's the programming. I mean, that's
exactly.
like the reactions to flat Earth.
Yeah, and I find it's quite interesting because when you speak with people, it's like speaking to Agent Smith sometimes. You're having a conversation with someone, and as soon as you say like a trigger word, Illuminati or flat Earth or something, then the same regurgitated programming will just kick in. And I mean, I hear it all the time. I don't mean to antagonize anyone, but it's really startling how incredible the programming is, because you hear the same sentences. I mean, we're trying to tell people about flat Earth. It's always the same questions that come up initially, and I had those same questions as well. So it's not belittling anyone, because I was also a drone.
All right, we'll be right back, everyone.
Sin, mute.
Hey, Kathy.
All right, thank you.
We all here.
Thank you very much, Kathy. I appreciate it. Really quickly, there was a question about Job 37:18 and whether these stars are attached to the firmament. And I think this is a really interesting question. And there was a story that is in the book Traditions of the Jews by Johann A. Eisenmenger. And it speaks about how the firmament rotates, that the stars are all apportioned to it and linked in some way. And I'm not talking about the wandering stars, because in some of the rabbinical commentary, especially with the Chronicles of Jeremiah, it describes that there are 7 layers to the firmament, in which these 7 planets of the universe, which are cited as Mercury, Mars, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, and then the sun and the moon, that these 5 objects all move in circle in these various set positions within the firmament, but that these stars in the constellations that we see as far as the zodiac, that they are embedded into the firmament, and that the firmament rotates which is why they all move. Now, I'm not saying this is the way it is, or that this is, my position on it. I'm just referencing this story that you can find in the Traditions of the Jews by Johann A. Eisenmenger, who published this in 1700. And this book was so deeply controversial, and he also covers the serpent seed in great detail in this book, that it was banned by the Roman Catholic emperor at that time, and all the copies of it were gathered together and burned. And Eisenmenger basically died of a heart attack because his whole life's work had been destroyed. But this one Huguenot exile was able to get a copy of it and to preserve it, and republished it in 1748 as the book The Traditions of the Jews. And it's found in that particular text. It talks about the firmament as having structure, very firm, solid, found, as far as what it says in Job, that the firmament is a molten looking glass, and he describes that as well. There was an interesting story just recently I was reading about where it talked about, and I believe this was also in the Book of the Bee. It spoke about how they were trying to build um, the whole thing with the Tower of Babel, and that they were trying to do so in order to see what the firmament was made of, and that they were trying to, after determining that, they wanted to breach it because they knew that God's throne and that the kingdom of heaven was right beyond the firmament. And then, that's when the Lord God sent down his angels to separate the tongues and the tribes. And interestingly enough, also, I was just reading a book called "That's What the Old Ones Say" by Chief Joseph Riverwind. And in that book, it talks about that the reason they believed that the natives believed that the earth was sitting on the back of a turtle was not because they thought, it was sitting on the back of the turtle, but that the earth, which was coming up past the oceans and beyond sea level, at at one time it was in the shape of the back of a turtle, and that all the continents were united like Pangea, that they all formed one continent. And this was before, supposedly, they attempted to create this Stargate and this tower to breach into the heavens and to, tap into and try to find out what the firmament was made of. And that after that, the the turtle shell, which would have been the fullness of all the lands and all the continents all together in one round structure, that it was then broken up and separated into the various continental shapes and things that we have now, which I thought that was a very interesting story. But anyways, and so that should address that. But as far as, there's some belief that the firmament moves, or that it's just the stars within the firmament. I can't say one way or the other, but most certainly all the stars move in the same rate, same motion, the same movement, and at the same speed, which, that's interesting in and of itself. And so if the firmament were spinning in any way, um, it would control that kind of movement. But I actually tend to believe that the firmament is established and permanent and impenetrable. But at this point, who really knows? Richard, let's go to you first, and then we'll go to Kathy.
Yeah, sure. Wasn't it Project Fishbowl, I think it was called, where they tried to shoot nukes at the
Right.
firmament?
Yeah, there were a number of them. Project Dominic, Project Fishbowl, several of them that were all connected to the same kind of thing. Starfish Prime, different ones, but go ahead.
Yeah, that was a great explanation. I believe in the firmament being fixed, but I'm open to any interpretation on that. Really interesting to hear your thoughts on that just then.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Kathy, did you have anything you wanted to?
Well, I think one of the most fascinating things came from, because it got people to thinking about it, came from that Hennessy commercial, visualizing waters above and waters below. And then there's with that rocket that had hit, people thought that it made a sound like,
right.
That might resonate like water. So we're learning so much, and it almost daily, new things will come to the fore.
Right.
I was just watching a video about GPS and satellites, and this was by Paul Sandu. He doesn't get a lot of hits, and this is really good. It's interesting. It's a different take on, how they would have to be positioned, and that it's really not possible. And the concept that a radio wave is going to go from the ground up to where satellites are supposed to be, and then still come back down, triangulate, and it's not going to have the interference, that we somehow expect that this is the way that it truly works. And I really liked his the way he looked at that, how he deconstructed it. So there's just a lot of things that are coming out. And you know, it's that knee-jerk reaction where they say, where you get responses like on Twitter, and Richard, you probably run into this too, where they just immediately write you off and don't consider what you're talking about or information you may offer. When in fact, I mean, you look at the topics that Richard is writing about, this is the gamut of our world, from beginning to end and everything in between that we haven't really even thought about. Our minds have been closed. We just do the day to day, and we aren't thinking of the larger things that all have to do with our existence and creation and God and how he designed this world. And it's so much more fascinating. And this is what sparked it for me. You know, just kind of, even though being involved in, being involved in the truth community and looking into deeper things, especially revolving around your works, Zen, you know, I've learned so much the past several years, but this kicked it off to a whole new level. So anyway, that's what I have to say.
Excellent. I'm going to read one really quick, and I'm not sure if you've heard of this passage, Richard, but it's in connection to the whole the Tower of Babel, and they're trying to breach the firmament. And then after that, I wanted to ask you how it is that you present this information to people that are new, or like if you're speaking to a loved one, or you know, somebody that you're trying to help awaken to this kind of how it is you begin your presentation, and what different steps you lead them through as far as guiding them in knowledge. But really quick, and I'll get you to comment on this as well. This is from the Chronicles of Jeremiah, chapter 30. It says, "For they had said, 'Come and let us build for ourselves a city, and let us take axes and break open the firmament, so that the water flow from there and descend below, that he may not do unto us as he did to the generations of the flood. And let us wage war with those in heaven and establish ourselves there as gods.'" And so, you know, in this verse, you can see that they know that the firmament is solid and that it is holding up the waters above and dividing the waters above from the waters below, and that in order for them to take over heaven and establish themselves as gods, that they have to break open the firmament as the barrier which prevents them from being able to get into heaven, which, you know, I postulate in my work that the firmament was put into place on the same day that the book of Enoch, the book of the secrets of Enoch, says that the rebel angels, Lucifer and the rebel angels, were cast out of the heavens for, you know, engaging in overthrow of Christ and bringing forth the war in heaven. And that being banished here to the earth on the second day, that the firmament was put into place after that to prevent them from being able to get back into heaven, but also to enclose them and to imprison them here to the earth for what would be the coming judgment at the end of the second world age. I'll get you to comment on this first, Richard, and then if you would go into how it is that you prepare people for this journey of truth.
So interesting points. I mean, I'm not sure I have anything more to add than on what you just said there. It's fascinating stuff. I would be curious. I got asked the question of the day, and I didn't really know how to answer it because my biblical knowledge isn't as great as yours. And it was, why throw Lucifer into earth with men and not just straight into hell and let men be,
Yeah, and that's a really good question, and I cover that in chapter 16 of what is my first book on the Great Contest, and it's the chapter title is "Why Would God Tolerate Evil?" And in that chapter, I explain how it was basically he was giving Lucifer and the rebel angels because he loves them as his created beings. Just as he loves man, why are you mindful of man? He loves us in the same manner, and he loves the angels in the same manner. And he extended reprieve and a chance for them to also repent and to do right. But because of their wickedness and because of their adherence, their determination to serve evil and to establish themselves as gods themselves and to be like the Most High, they've only been given this 7,000 years of the Second World Age in order to establish and to try and to put forth their attempts to, create the New World Order, because the New World Order is not anything new. It's an old idea. It's an old concept. And it was formulated in the mind of Lucifer when iniquity was found within him, and he decided he wanted to be like Christ and to overthrow Christ. Because in the whole premise of my book on the war in heaven, I talk about how it was Christ being revealed as the light of the world, that in that moment that he brought the entirety of the creation into visibility, but he was also given dominion and made the commander, the chief, and the leader of the angelic hierarchy. And because Lucifer was the first created, and he was the archangel and the one that was at that time leading, and which all the angels, came to him for instruction. He was their leader. He was basically demoted, and he did not like that. And because of that, that's the moment that iniquity was found with him, and he decided that rather than serve Christ, he was going to try to overthrow him and to be like the Most High. That's when he says in Isaiah 14, I will establish my throne above the stars and the clouds of God, and I will be like the Most High. And so from that moment onward, he attempted to conspire the overthrow of God. It speaks about this in Paradise Lost as well. And for that's when he and the 1/3 of the angels of the Most High that joined him in rebellion were thrown out. And they were here before humanity was here. And it was pre-Adamic humans that were here when they were cast out of the heavens during that early time on the second day. And so, man, if we would have not been tempted and not been beguiled, because it was Adam and Eve that in their beguilement, that's what caused them to fall. But they were living in paradise and they were tending the garden of God. And so they weren't created to be put into where Lucifer and the rebel angels had been exiled. It was after they fell in temptation that they were transformed into flesh form, that they took on human physicality and they lost their bright nature. And from that moment onward, they, in all of us, have now been incarnating here upon the earth. But we weren't originally, meant to be here with the fallen angels. But when we fell, when we were tempted, both man and just like the rebel angels and being given reprieve, humanity was also given reprieve, and we were given a second chance to redetermine who we would serve. And in being incarnated into flesh form and living through the duality that we find here in this dimension, the full spectrum of pain and pleasure, good and evil, we are now given new chance to serve either Satan and evil or God and good. And so that's what all this, this life is about. And in determining that, we also determine our eternal inheritance and whether we will have the chance and the opportunity to, go back to paradise and having a return to our first state.
Awesome.
So that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I feel privileged to get that answer firsthand from you. It's awesome answer. I mean, I usually point back to free will, and everyone, instead of viewing God made evil in the world, instead just view it as it's the gift of free will. I mean, you can choose good or evil, and that's what it boils down to. And also to build on what you were saying on Lucifer wanting to exalt himself above God. I mean, that's spoken of in 2 Thessalonians 2:4 as well. And the Lord God said, "Behold, the man has become as one of us." That's Genesis. Who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God,
Yes.
showing himself that he is God. And the big subject that comes in here to tie what you were saying into a modern context is transhumanism, where we see in movies like Iron Man where they have a cube for his heart, and the Bible always talks about how know ye not that you are the temple that God dwells. God dwells in your heart, and if you replace your heart with the cube, you put the matrix into yourself essentially. You're basically exalting yourself above God, or trying to, at least. That's not really possible, but that's the ego of man,
Right.
driving on, to become their own gods. Which, curiously, you look at the numbers on the Skull and Bones logo, and it's 322, and then you look at Genesis 3:22, and the Lord God said, "Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever." So that's
Very
exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
And to build on, I'll go into that in my blog a bit more, but the number 322 has to do with DNA as well, because DNA strands, each strand has 22 base pairs. So a normal human would have 2 times 22, but if you add a third strand, 3 times 22, you're adding a nanotech robotic strand, which is exactly what the mark of the beast is. It's not the chip. It's nanotech and activated nanotech DNA that essentially that, like, if you think about, like, why does that make you unredeemable to the creator? It's because we all have the source code of the creator, and we have what's a heartbeat? A heartbeat is a magnetic vibration. It's the vibration of the creator in us. And if you replace the source code, the DNA, and you corrupt that with nanotech, which is the beast, the matrix, corrupting your DNA, basically slicing your DNA in half, kind of, and you replace your heart, you're basically not part of the creator anymore. So by accepting the mark, which isn't a chip, it's actually activating DNA to hook yourself up to augmented reality, then you're unredeemable. So even if the creator would want to, he can't. And Revelation talks about there won't be another flood, but there'll be fire. And why is there fire? And he talks about, I don't have the passage up now, but it talks about melting the metal in Revelation, and that's because people are going to be transhumans, and the only way they're going to be trapped in this transhuman body, unable to die. There's a passage of it.
How they want to die, but they can't.
Exactly. And there's another passage: those who shall save their life, or those who shall lose their life. Where is it? Those who shall lose their life for my sake shall keep it, but those who try to save their life shall lose it. And that's transhumanism. Whoever tries to become God and live forever and save their life, essentially, will lose it. And whoever dies, because man is appointed to die once. That's the price of sin. That's Romans 3, not 4. I forget. But man is appointed once to die, and Jesus showed the way. He died once. He came as a man. He died as a man, and it's that simple, really. But the thing is, in order to know that, and to be strong enough to make that choice to die and be comfortable with death, you really do need the knowledge that is bestowed upon those who open their minds and read the Bible humbly. Because otherwise, it's obvious, if you don't want to die. Who wants to die? No one wants to die. But if you know that death is just, it's just physical, but your spirit can live on, then you choose. You choose to, you're happy, you're comfortable with death. I don't fear death at all because of this knowledge. And that's the knowledge that's being kept from us. That people think that this life is everything, and all this chaos that's been engineered, order out of chaos. There's going to be so much chaos in the world, and the only way to flee it will be to become a transhuman. And Trump, in his speech, if you listen carefully to what he was saying that technology will be used to eradicate all diseases, and transhumanism will eradicate diseases. It'll be like an amazing, solve all pill. You can hook yourself up to augmented reality, which is being sold more and more. You look at adverts, like there's an Audi A5 coupe advert out recently, which shows this digital reality. And you can guess who narrates it. I mean, just watch it for yourself. And it's all pointing towards digital reality with you tie in stuff from Anthony Patch with D-Wave and CERN. There's going to be a lot of cool stuff happening where people will they go into an Apple store and they can buy a better hand, or they can lift more stuff, or they can see through walls or something, buy better eyes, and commodities, or a phone, or apps. It'll be part of your body instead of loose handheld device. So it'll be incredibly difficult for people to resist that, especially in the face of mounting chaos, mounting disease, and a way to flee all this chaos will be to become transhuman, and essentially a cyborg. So what we'll see in the next few years, or I don't know how, I don't know the timeline exactly, but we'll start to see humans against cyborgs, and then there is already laws with the transhuman political party talking about what percentage of human does someone have to be for them to have the same laws as humans? I mean, is it 10%, 20, 30, 40, 50%? I mean, they can make human-pig hybrid, lungs or livers and stuff. And how much animal do you have to be to be considered, how much human, how much animal do you have to be to have the same rights as a human? And it's going to be some interesting times with some big questions. And I don't think a lot of people are prepared for it. But yeah, I've been rambling a bit, so yeah, interested to hear your take.
Oh, no, all good stuff. And I would just add that, this world and this realm too, in going back to free will, that this is our chance also to learn why it is that we need a sovereign, just God to rule over the creation. Because given free will, both the angels and humanity, in creating what we want, we would create chaos, disorder, and dysfunction to such degree that there should be no flesh left. And so that is the lesson also of this world and this duality, is to show us why we truly do need a just God to rule over and in harmony and in order. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for our final segment. The show just went by really fast this evening, but Richard, if you would give people all of your contact and content information, where they can go to find your blogs and all of that before we continue, and then if you would, let's begin this segment with how it is that you bring forth this truth to others that are new to it, how you kind of break the ice, open the doors for them to a new paradigm.
Sure, thank you. We got through quite a lot in that last segment. That was fun. So my contact details, my website is www.thenarrowgateweb.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Richard Kallberg. That's Richard Kallberg. I've got a Facebook page, private. You can add me as well, and easy to find with my name. And also www.facebook.com/thenarrowgateweb. So that's where you can follow me. Also, you can email me through the contact page on my site, and I answer all emails. So please do get in touch if you have questions. Also, really appreciate everyone who helps share my content, because that's really important to me to get information out. I spend a lot of time spreading it on social media, and every single link that anyone shares is immensely helpful. So I appreciate that. I wanted to, before I talked about or answered your question about how I share information, I wanted to make a couple of comments on that support also, and probably put a positive spin on what we were talking about with transhumanism, and because I don't like to be all doom and gloom. I mean, there are some bad things happening, but if we remember, in 1 John 3:2-3, beloved, now are we the sons of God, and it doth not yet appear what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. So, we'll be the same as Christ was with his powers. And that's exactly what he says in Matthew 17:20. Jesus said unto them, because of your unbelief, for verily I say unto you, if you have faith as a grain of a mustard seed, ye shall say unto this mountain, remove hence to yonder place, and it shall remove, and nothing shall be impossible to you. And again in John 14:12, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do shall he do also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. So, the more people sign up for transhumanism, if you keep strong and keep having faith in the Creator and Jesus, you're going to get those powers. And, the powers that the fallen angels and transhumanism will bestow on people is tiny compared to what, you can do with the infinite power of the Creator with just a mustard seed of faith. So that's like a message of positivity that I'd, sum up on transhumanism and, the coming times. And I always like to use a bit of, real world examples or as far as possible. And I think a good example would be the movie The Matrix. Each Neo is an analogy for each one of us. And the one, you can be the one, I can be the one, Kathy can be the one, we all have this in us if we just, open ourselves and believe that anything is possible. The mind is a very strong thing. We can do anything we put our mind to. And with the Creator on our side, there's literally nothing we can't do. So all the fear you have, we're told that we can trample serpents and we should fear nothing, and this is why. We might be down, have a tough time, or things might look bleak, but we always have the power of the Creator. And you study Exodus and Moses with the parting of the Red Sea and things. These things are possible, and with an understanding of science from cymatics and magnetism, you start to realize that thoughts are just vibrations, and those vibrations are affecting the magnetic field around us. Even a bumblebee, they aren't aerodynamic, but they can fly. They don't fly because they're aerodynamic. They fly because they have resonant cavities in their wings that get them to resonate the same frequency as the atmosphere around them, the ether, the fields, and that's how anti-gravity technology works. When you think, why would a bumblebee get the power to levitate, and we as human beings, the creation in the image of God, wouldn't have similar powers? It's ridiculous. So of course we're going to be able to do that, but you need to have faith and you need to have knowledge. So that's why I find it incredibly important to share this information with people, so that they can feel confident and positive. Because my blog deals with a lot of truth, but I try to put a positive spin on it, even the negative stuff. I'm writing about MK Ultra now, and it's a horrible subject. But when you have you have the positive, bigger picture, you can really be positive about things rather than all doom and gloom. So yeah, sorry if I ranted there, but I just wanted to say that. Do you want to have anything to add on that before I answer your question?
I would say that the full summation of my work is similar in that I am focused on bringing people to remembrance, helping them to recognize the kingdom, the Christ that is within them, and their connecting link to the Creator, and in understanding the larger facets of our reasons for being here and what all of this really is all about, in relation to not only the Creator but also to the creation, that helping people to acknowledge that within themselves, recognize that within themselves, that we are now in a fallen state, but that we had pre-existed as spiritual beings, as angelic beings, and that we had an inheritance to return to that is just so mind-blowingly awesome. And eternity with our King and our Lord, our Creator, and to understand that and to prioritize that, in my opinion, that's the most important of everything, of why we are here and what we are really to be doing. And so I fully agree with you, and that is the focus of my work as well.
Awesome. As for how one goes about sharing this with people, I always try to focus on the positives, and putting a positive spin on things, like, I don't know, with a bit of jokes or seeing the funny side of things, but then also pointing out the obvious. I've made mistakes, in the past that have made people, unfortunately, like family members and friends who don't listen to me now, because I've come on too strong in the past with
Yes.
flat Earth or any subject.
Yes.
And I understand that, and I apologize to those people who they think I'm crazy, and if I was them, I'd also think I was crazy, because it is pretty crazy stuff. And my approach wasn't as logical or in a narrative as my blog is, and that's the reason I was feeling quite frustrated with not being able to convey these things, because once you have this information, you think there's nothing more important in the world than for other people to have that as well, and not being able to convey that by talking, I set about writing my blog, which has helped quite a few people, from the feedback I get, and it helps myself as well, because I get, there's a lot of questions that I have still that, when I start writing a blog post, and I piece together the knowledge, the holes in my own knowledge get filled when I try to present things in a logical and coherent way. So it's a very, very cool process for me to do, for personal reasons, but also I think it helps, have a source. I had a comment today on Twitter saying that it's the website is great as an introduction for people, because I tried to make sure that literally anyone, no matter what knowledge you had before on conspiracies, or that arena, that you could pick up and read, and it would be cool science, history, and stuff. So I try to just focus on things that are provable, objective, self-evident truths, and try to avoid the pitfalls that I personally did, trying to share information, coming on too strong, and I try to lead people slowly into information, and I think the written medium is good for that, because people can read it in their own pace. If they think it's going too fast, they can slow down and go back to another post or jump around. So I think it's important to have to stay grounded and have patience, and take things slowly with people, and because I thought people would immediately, if I said the Earth is flat, then they would be like, oh, really curious, as I was curious when I heard that, but people are programmed to avoid certain subjects, and also to think you're crazy if you question things too much. So that's, if any advice I would give to people is just be patient and try to do a funny side of things, like ask a question and let someone else ask them, how would you explain to a 5-year-old, like I'm a 5-year-old, how would you explain to me how we know that the Earth is spinning, or that we live on a ball? And I think people slowly come to realize, by trying to debunk it or answer it for themselves, they'll come to realization themselves. Because the last thing I want is for people to just believe everything they read in my blog or everything they see. I want them to question things themselves and come to conclusions for themselves. So a lot of the time I won't explicitly say, this is how it is. I'll just, hint at it, and then we'll talk about it more later. Or, this is a good source. And I'll try to just let people research things and come to grips with it themselves, because I don't want to be overwhelming. And I'd probably be writing for 10 years if I was going to write every detail as well.
I wanted to add a comment. There was on your Twitter account, Colin had left a message. I found your work the best way to get so many people who laughed me off thinking at last. A great introduction. And I have to agree with that.
Yeah, that's the comment that warmed my heart that I was talking about.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But if I really appreciate I get a lot of good emails, good praise and stuff. But the thing that really helps, I'm not in this for the praise. I don't want any praise at all. I just want people to, share this knowledge. So the best way to help is to share. Go on Facebook and drop a few links in groups, or email people, or keep sharing, because that's how we get this information out there. Because I as much as I love having positive feedback, which is always nice, it's always welcome. I feel the best feedback I can get is that someone feels that my work is worth sharing. So sharing is really, when I see someone sharing on Twitter, I always thank them, and all the help I can get with sharing is much appreciated.
Yes, it's all for the glory of God, most certainly.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I also had to learn, and I do share this with my listeners as well, and I encourage them to drop seeds and to plant seeds, but not throw pearls before the swine, especially if people are not ready and that they're unwilling to listen and they only want to confront you in very negative and harsh way, like they're totally in opposition to it. That, there's nothing wrong with honoring people for where they are. And when they are ready, if they come to you and they need guidance and direction, to then, when they are open to listening and open to actually doing the investigation, that we can certainly help to guide them to some real truth. But until they are so, you're just basically running yourself headlong into a wall and butting your head, against a wall, because they don't want to learn and they don't even want to hear about it. And so you can't really at that point reach them in any kind of a meaningful way. But yes, we are to plant seeds. But the other thing I wanted to quickly mention, and this is something that I haven't even told Kathy yet, but I'm working with a guy named Brad Hutchinson, and I'll give a shout out to him now, who's a comic. He does caricatures and he's really awesome artist, but we're working on a flat earth children's book.
Wow.
And
Awesome.
yeah. And it's not going to be very long at all. But it's going to be enough, and it's going to be presented in a very cartoonish, and very colorful and eye appealing manner, and very simple, that will make this truth accessible to children as well. And so that's a whole other project that I have, not even had a chance to really even mention. Not even to
awesome.
Kathy, who knows everything that I'm doing and involved in.
That's really cool. I hadn't thought of, I thought my blog was accessible, but making it cartoons for children is awesome.
Yeah, I think it'll make it accessible,
using
and
the
parents,
using the cartoon format for once without, evil underpinnings.
Right. And, to make it appealing to children and something that parents can share with them, reading a story at night, and so I thought it was a really great idea. And so, yeah, that's
awesome.
He's working on all the illustrations now, and I already sent him an outline for, how to guide and lead the book. And it's just a matter of writing in the script out in full, and, we'll be done. So at some point soon, that'll be ready, available as well.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, we're coming near the end of the show, Richard. So I wanted to give you an opportunity to share anything that you feel is relevant to, or any new research that you've come across that you find to be interesting, or just basically anything that you'd like to speak about in up till the end of the show.
How long do you got?
Well, we've got like 7-8 minutes, so.
Cool. Well, we could talk about literally any subject, but I guess for the benefit of my readers and those listening, I might preview stuff that's coming up in my blog.
Yeah, sure. That'd be great.
So I've got a plan. The posts 28 to 33 that I skipped is going to cover the planets and tie it in with cymatics. And it's if anyone has time, they should listen to Michael Tellinger, his Flat Earth Disclosure, where he goes into cymatics and stuff as well, in Flat Earth, tied in with the Flat Earth. And I'm going to be talking about that a bit, and then bring it back into Scientism Exposed. There's a great movie by Robbie Davidson, who's actually organizing the first Flat Earth conference in November. And his movie Scientism Exposed is excellent, so I'll be including that in my blog as well, and kind of lead the subject into that, and cover Enoch a little bit, and try to tie it in a bit with the television, and lead how could people be deceived, and then get into programming, covering a bit of symbolism, what we see on television, and then leads into numbers. And I have some really big subjects that I actually wrote some posts probably 4 or 5 months ago that I'm kind of holding back a little bit because I want to release them when I've covered a lot of information first to lay the groundwork. But it's we do live in a mathematical matrix. I mean, the universe is run by numbers, so that'll be pretty awesome to post, I think. And so anyone listening, please, like my blog is a work in progress, so do make sure to follow it. So you get, the instructions on how to follow are on the table of contents page in the header, so that you can get automatic emails when I do post new things, because what I've posted so far is pretty much just scratching the surface for everything. And I do want to cover some of the stuff that Casey, Into the Stars, covers, and he had a long show with you, Zen, on the biblical anatomy, and that's a whole subject on its own. That's I want to get into eventually as well. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, that's an interesting subject.
Yeah, so I mean, there is so much to talk about and so much to write about, and I hope people realize that the flat Earth is a gate. It's not the end subject that you stop at. I mean, the rabbit hole has many layers, and the flat Earth is just one of them. But you can go far deeper than that. So I mean, I'm going to try to lead people in a coherent way into some cool subjects. So I mean, by no means, my blog isn't a flat Earth blog. It's a big part of it, obviously, but it's there's a lot more to it, and there's a lot of exciting stuff to come, and I'm really excited to start to be writing about them. So keep your eye out. That's shameless plug.
Yeah, no, that's fine. We want you to promote your work and to tell people where to go. And like you, I'm similar in that regard. I mean, yes, flat Earth is a huge revelation, deeply profound, life-altering, paradigm-shifting, but it's only one of the aspects of the many different secrets and the different keys that I cover in the scope of my work. Even though my last two books are on this as subject, before this, the one on the War in Heaven, but it is something I'm very interested in, and it's a big part of the work that I do, but it's only one aspect, and I cover so many other things, and so like yourself, it's just a portion. It's not the thing that defines me in fullness in any manner.
Awesome.
Yeah,
I wish. Yeah, I wish I had more time to read your books, but it's so challenging. I don't have time to read any books or watch many YouTube videos, the longer ones, because I'm just head down in my own work.
That's exactly the way I am too, brother.
But it's cool though, because I mean, if you're led, led in certain directions, you kind of know where your heart is leading you to what you should do and what you should watch, and kind of prioritize things, and it's cool feeling. And having a thought, when you you ask a question, seek and you shall find, the Spirit will guide you.
Right.
John 16:13. It's quite a very cool experience to be writing a blog post, and there'll be a certain subject or topic where I'll be asking myself, how does this work? And somehow someone will just send me an email with video on that, or with answering it. It's just synchronicities, and that's the really awesome part with synchronicities, is that you can, by understanding how the universe works in terms of synchronicity, you can look back on your own life and see how all the dots are connected. Like, the Bible says, all the hairs on your head are numbered, right. And everything is happening for a reason, with guidance from the Creator. So once you embrace that, you find your purpose, and you discover what are your gifts, and when your gifts are aligned with your purpose and you're working in tandem with the Creator, I often feel like a herd of buffaloes charging down, or like a steam train at the same time, or like a lion. I mean, you feel so invigorated writing about stuff, and people wonder where I get the energy from to write, endlessly. And when you have, when you find your purpose, then it's very easy to find energy and to motivate yourself. And I really want other people to find that as well, and find find their purpose,
Yes.
finding their gift as well. Because I'm not elevating myself here in any way, because I'm not special at all. I'm just another guy. But I'm just happen to be a guy who found my,
Your purpose, yeah.
aligning my gift with my purpose. I'm not good
Yes.
at everything. I'm
Right.
just happen to like researching and writing, and you have your gifts as well, which are amazing gifts. But each and every single one of us, and everyone listening, you have your gifts, and once you start, pursuing the Creator, and you're discovering what your gifts are, your purpose will become very clear, and then you start making a difference and leaving a legacy, I suppose.
Yes.
It's very exciting times, but this is what the people running the world don't want.
Right.
People with working against not against them, but for the Creator. There's nothing more powerful.
Right, absolutely. Because we're awakened to our purpose, our real role and mission in serving the kingdom, and there's nothing more empowering in an individual than somebody that embraces that within themselves, and just like you, I've turned my passion for researching and studying God's word into also my life's work with relating that and sharing that with others, as you have also chosen to do. And like you, I being so consumed with just that and my focus and in that, I don't have the time to study everybody else's works and to keep up with all that they're doing, which is why I'm so grateful for Kathy, in helping me to keep me grounded to everything else that's going on. Otherwise, I'd probably just miss it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what I'm gathering is I send you guys emails and you don't have time to read them.
We read some, maybe not all, but yeah,
Yeah,
we
the
still.
high points. Anyway,
You keep us
keep doing
connected.
it.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Awesome. Well, before the break cuts in again, I just want to really thank you from the bottom of my heart, like for inviting me on again. I mean, it's awesome. Last time I had some tech issues, and this is the first show I've done actually where I haven't had tech issues. So it's awesome progress, and it's really humble and generous of you to invite me on so soon after that. So I thank you again for that, and I think it's been a pleasure for me to hear from you firsthand about a lot of subjects, and I hope your listeners have enjoyed it as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they have, and they say thank you, and we thank you, and for your willingness to come on with us, and for fellowshipping with us and sharing. It was certainly a good time.
I'm
Kathy,
always willing.
we got 20 seconds, Kathy. So you want to share?
I'm just excited about working with Richard for his book
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
and having you on again to talk about it.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Anytime.
absolutely.
God bless you all. Loved
God
having you on,
bless
Richard.
everybody. Good night. Shabbat shalom.
Thanks
Good night.
very much. Bye-bye.